let's talk about my morning routine. It's basically the opposite of the night routine. I go and unbrush my teeth, unfloss, put the dirt on my face. I go and like dirty up the dishes or dwelling on some negative thought, thinking about it every day across weeks and months and years. That turns into hours that you've been dwelling on something negative, and that has an effect on, like you said, keeping a generally positive attitude, but not a superficially acknowledging like, hey, there's a lot of negativity and there's reasons to be negative, and that's fair. But just knowing that having a negative attitude and being cynical about situations is not going to A, help any of the situations, and B, help my own ability to even begin to serve in a situation like that.
Welcome to the Collaborative Resource Hub by Wellness Provisions. We're bridging the gap between mental health, wellness, and rock and roll. I'm Amy McBride, owner of Wellness Provisions, the most badass wellness business. Hey, are you feeling a little stuck in life? I offer wellness coaching sessions. Book a session with me if you're seeking to get healthy and ahead. Sessions are available worldwide. And check this out. Wellness Provisions supplies rock and rollers with high-quality supplements. We've simplified your shopping experience and given you a trustworthy place to go where you can essentially shop blindfolded. And did you know all our Collaborative Resource Hub interviews air on YouTube as well as all major podcast platforms? Subscribe to stay in the loop. Go immerse yourself in the full Collaborative Resource Hub experience over on our website. You'll have access to helpful resources that will inspire and educate you. So let's inspire each other. If that guy did it, so can you. Last but not least, my legal disclaimer. Nothing in this interview or the Collaborative Resource Hub substitutes medical advice. Please connect with your GP if you need medical guidance. Hunter, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, how are your pets? Because we've been talking before I started recording, and how are your pets doing? And by then, how are you from that?
So here's the situation, just to sort of recap. We've got a 7-month-old kitten named Boogie, and he was just neutered. And so he's been walking around in like a surgical suit, so he won't. Also, it needs to be known that he one of his testicles didn't drop, and so they had to do a fairly invasive surgery. And that situation is called a cryptorchid, apparently. It's a cool name. And yeah, they had to like cut open his stomach and like try to find it. Man. From what I understand, a normal like cat neutering is like the easiest thing that, like surgery wise, that you can do. And that this makes it just like a difficult regular surgery. So he's been in a bad place. We tried the cone with him, and he's tiny, and it just was not working.
Yeah.
And so we bought him a surgical suit, which just looks like kind of like a Star Trek uniform.
Yeah, nice little jumper.
He's sitting right here. He might try to jump up on my lap at some point, but he's sleeping, so that's good. He has required 24-hour like monitoring. And so my girlfriend and I have been working in shifts. He sleeps a lot of the time, which is great, but then he will just, on a whim, as cats are wont to do, get up and go do something, or think he can go do something, and he can't physically do it yet. Cutting into his his abdominal section has like kind of messed up the muscles for his hind legs, and so he can't really jump the way he's used to. He's getting better, but so he might just wander off, and I'd go and find him in one of the multiple litter boxes, sitting up perfectly straight. And as I'm thinking to myself, man, his posture is so good, he's sitting up so straight, I watch him just fall backwards.
Oh, no.
Dumping the whole litter box all over himself. And so now I have to figure out a way to clean the litter off of him without
the jumper.
Yeah, it's just, so it's like nonstop chaos. And just when you think like, okay, he's cool, then we have a senior cat that we just adopted, who, her name is Rocky 2. She's at least 10 years old. The vet says that she has 2 teeth, I've only seen one.
What?
So, but she's super cute, and she
Aw.
actually had been roaming around the property for like 9 months, and I slowly conned her into like becoming an indoor cat, which there are a number of like feral cats in the neighborhood that sort of in the circuit, they go to all the different available cat dishes around
Yeah.
house to house, kind of like trick-or-treating every day. But this particular cat took a liking to us specifically and started sleeping just outside the door, and then moved up to the outside of the windowsill. And so, we gave her some special treats, and like, we go out there and give her pets. She allowed us to give her pets. And then it got to where she was like rolling on her back. So we put like a towel down, and then I built her a house because this was like, a few months ago. It started to get cold. Actually, I
Yeah.
guess about a month ago. Seems like a few months ago, but it was starting to get cold at night, and I started to worry that, that unlike the other cats who are smart and find warm shelter somewhere, she was just sleeping in the window. It's like cold and raining, and she's sleeping in the window, like just because she like wants to be near us or near the food or whatever. And so I built her this house, and she started using it. It was super cute. And then we went away for a week, and on day 2, she disappeared. We have cameras and stuff everywhere, so it's like I'm able to monitor what
Yeah.
cats are, roaming around. And she disappeared, which is very, very uncharacteristic. In the 9 months that we've known her, she's always come around for food every single day. And so, none of the cameras caught her roaming, the back of the place, the front of the place. And I started to worry because, and everyone's like reassuring me, like, don't worry, like she's just found, she'll come back. I'm like, here's the thing, like she has been relying on this food. Like if she's going somewhere else, it's going to be a new situation. She's gonna have to figure out how to get some other type of food.
Mm-hmm.
You've been going to the same restaurant every single day for food, and suddenly that restaurant's closed, or you decide not to go to that restaurant. Now you're in a whole new
Yeah.
situation. Like, well, I got to
Yeah.
see where I can even eat. um so yeah, a week goes by, she doesn't appear. I'm like distraught because, where's Rocky 2, who's named such because suddenly we realized there were 2 cats that look what we thought was the cat we named Rocky. It was just a
Oh.
feral cat in the neighborhood. There's actually 4 now.
Oh my God.
So, but this is Rocky 2. Anyway, we came back that night. She came back the very night, and we realized, oh, maybe she wasn't coming around for the food, because she came back happy.
Yeah.
Clearly hadn't been starving for a week. So she obviously was able to work the cat food circuit and came back just because she wanted to hang out with us. And sure enough, like every time I would close the door or to come back inside, she would try to follow me in. And it got to the point where when the rainstorms started hitting, I don't know if
Yeah.
you've heard about that, the parade of atmospheric rivers that have
Yeah.
been hitting us. Right when that started happening, and she's just sleeping out on the windowsill, I'm like, we can't let her do this. She's not even trying to retreat to dry safety. So we built a little habitat for her, brought her inside. She was happy to come inside, took her to the vet, get her checked out, because you can't have 2 cats have contact. So she had a clean bill of health, just a couple fleas. So I gave her a bath.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Which is always that's a gamble to give a feral cat, a 10-year-old feral cat, a bath. It's a lot of trust
Brave.
there.
Are
And
very brave.
she trusted me, and I walked away unscathed. And then, yeah, so we've been incorporating her into the home here. But it's been a test because, trying to monitor Boogie, but then also, give Rocky 2 what she needs to feel comfortable. And a lot of it's a territorial thing, and a lot of it is just figuring out how to, get everybody on the right food
Yeah.
routines and
Yeah.
using litter boxes. And we had her in this tent for like almost 2 weeks. And finally, when Boogie had his surgery, we felt like, okay, this is time. He's down for the count. It's time to let her have like free roam of the house and not retreat into this tent anymore. Everyone, also all the animals wanted to get into the tent, and it was just I'd be like about to go to sleep, doing my whole nighttime routine, like on the cliff's edge of going to sleep, and I hear like some type of kerfuffle going
Yeah.
on, and come back out to the dining room and see that Boogie has thrown himself at the tent, like just full like and and she's hissing at him and meowing, and he's like doesn't, I don't know, it's they've gotten to a couple like these things, but
Yeah.
nothing, no, I don't think any blows landed, which is
Well,
good.
that's good.
Yeah.
But so you said it affects your nighttime routine, your sleep routine. So what is your sleep routine?
Okay, so that's a great transition. So my sleep routine is it's I started kind of doing this during the pandemic because it sort of helped me make sense of my days, when days sort of seem to be like senseless.
A vague concept.
Yeah, so my nighttime routine starts with me sort of the timing is kind of slides here and there depending on like what I'm doing during the day. But it generally starts when I decide like, hey, it's time to ramp down.
Mhm.
And the ramp starts pretty early, and it starts with turning the lights down. So there are a lot of like, adjustable lights here. And so the lights are set to like a warmer setting and at a much darker setting. And so that begins the process.
Yeah.
And I'll do that while I'm still, finishing up something I'm doing, whether it's like, watching a TV show or, editing a song or like, whatever it is that I'm doing. And then that, I don't know, that kind of gets me like mentally set up to the next phase, which is kind of like a cleanup. So I take, I like to organize the living room area. So this, it's kind of a reset. Like, so the cushions, the things, the positions, the tech goes in the tech basket. Everything gets like organized.
Yeah.
And then, dishes and recyclables go to the kitchen. So, and then it's like load the dishwasher, hand wash all the things that need to be hand washed, which is like quite a few things. And wipe down all the counters and all the kitchen stuff.
Yeah.
And usually during that time, there's like, that's also, Lula knows that's her last chance to get a treat from me. If she's real cute and waiting there, she's whining, it's like, I don't know, do you deserve a treat? But and we haven't even talked about Lula yet, but Lula's the dog. She's the little dog. She's also a senior. She's I guess she's almost 15.
Wow.
But and surprisingly cool that she lives with 2 cats now. But her only motivation in life is treats. So she'll wait, and if she's been a good dog and has just been waiting patiently, then I'll give her a treat and get myself a water, and then I make my way hopefully to the bathroom where I brush and floss. And flossing is one of the things that I've adopted.
Yeah. Do you floss
In the
every night?
pandemic. My flossing throughout my whole life, 46 years, has been like sporadic at best. I go to the dentist and they'd be like, hey, like, do you floss regularly? And I would be like, well, let's see. I was here 6 months ago for a cleaning. I think I flossed once. So anyway, when the pandemic started, I decided, I should start flossing. I hate it, but let me just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've flossed every single day since that started, and it's great. And it's also like crazy to me that I didn't floss regularly before. and somehow my teeth didn't fall out. I don't
I
know.
know, right? That's always the mystery.
So brush and floss, wash my face. Sometimes I'll do like some lotion, just if
Okay.
my skin feels like a little dry or whatever. Um,
Question.
yes,
So you wash your face at night. Do you also wash it in the morning?
yes.
Amazing. Do you know how rare that is? Most people, if they wash their face, it's like one or the other, usually the morning, but you need it both times. Like it's imperative to like get rid of the crap from the day. And then like in the morning, you need to wash it to get rid of all the detoxing that's been going on.
Yeah, I just don't like to have a dirty face.
Yeah.
I don't want the Sandman to see me with the dirty face, and I don't want the day man, the day
Uh-huh.
people, whoever they might be, to see me with the dirty face. Yeah, it just also just feels like, I don't know. Also having a beard, like
Mm,
during the day, like there might be some food residue or something. I don't know. I'd like to think there isn't, but probably is.
possible.
So yeah, and then I would transition into the bedroom. If depending on what the animal situation is, Rocky 2 my girlfriend will already be asleep because she's like she can just like when I'm starting my ramp, she's just like, oh, I'm done.
Oh, wow.
She's just I am so envious.
Uh-huh.
Uh I'll pick up Boogie in his bed, which that's kind of the newer thing, and I'll bring the bed with the cat in it, like over next to my side of the bed. Rocky 2 will already be there. Lula will already be there in her bed. Rocky 2 will sleep on the human bed.
Okay.
I mean, and this is like, this is a fairly new setup for these animals, so that could change,
Right.
especially now that Rocky or that Boogie's kind of getting more back to his old ways. But yeah, and then so I for sleeping, I have had to pull out all the stops in terms of like, just every single trick that I have learned in terms of trying to fall asleep. So it's like, no, I'm not sitting there like on my phone. The lights are off. I have melatonin. I have an eye mask, like a full sleep mask thing. I actually even have like depending on, because we often have to run the air conditioner just to keep with so many warm bodies in the room, just to like keep the air temperature down to like a good sleeping temperature.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it ends up being too cold for my head, just because,
Yeah.
so I have like a little like sleeping cap with the sleep mask. I end up looking like, well, I think I look like some sort of like World War I pilot or something. Uh, and then we have a speaker that has like rain sounds.
Okay.
They're playing. I mean, it's playing right now. Like it's, around the clock, somebody wants to hear the rain sounds. So right now it's Rocky 2 and Lula.
Do you ever switch it up to just like white noise or any other kind of like ambient sound, or is it always just rain?
It's always rain. That's my favorite. I've
Okay.
tried other things. And it's, I don't know. It's kind of like this most calming of all the things. I think ones that have too like ocean sounds where there's waves crashing has too many variations throughout it. And also earplugs. So it's also like just the frequencies that make it through the earplugs on some of those, some of those sounds are I don't know.
Yeah.
I think having some consistency too. It's like I've been doing these rain sounds for forever, and this one specific rain sound. So I don't know. And then still with all of that, sometimes all it takes is Boogie jumping on my head and biting me,
Mm-hmm.
or biting the exposed part of my face to wake me up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
How,
so that's the
how,
full night routine. Hopefully
okay.
it works. Hopefully it takes.
And how much sleep do you try and get? Like what works for your body? Like 8 hours, 6 hours?
So I would love 8 hours. That never happens.
Yeah.
When I'm in the animal environment, it's just you get what you get, And there are moments sometimes when there's that, even with earplugs and all the stuff, like there's just some cataclysmic thing that wakes me up and I have to jump into action immediately. Sometimes at that point, I'm like, well, now I'm up. And sometimes I'm like, that was only 4 hours of sleep. That's not enough, guys. I'm sorry, I gotta go back to bed.
Yeah.
Um, and so it just depends. However, I will say this: when I'm on tour, it's a completely different routine. I mean, it's not completely different, but it's similar.
Yeah.
Um, but it's on tour, it's like it is based on time. There's like, at 1:30, I start my ramp. I'm already in my bunk.
Mhm.
So I have been looking at my phone because there's not a whole lot to do, but I'm like, I get into my bunk, I'm already in the bunk, I already brushed and flossed. I already did all the wash my face, did all the stuff, like all well prior to getting into the bunk. Get into my bunk and um and I start my ramp, and then at 2 o'clock, it's like I try for bedtime there.
Okay.
And the difference being, I let myself sleep as long as I can even try to sleep. Like still even in the bunk with the vibrations and the sounds, earplugs, the mask, and I will just let myself sleep as long as I can, because on tour most days I don't have to do anything until sound check. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be wild if I jumped out of the bunk and went straight to sound check without eating or coffee or anything. But the idea is like, let myself physically fully recover from the show.
Totally.
And some days I'll sleep 10 hours and wake up feeling great, and I'm also like tearing my body apart the night before, and I can use it, but it's like, I don't know, I'm putting my body to much more of like a physical test than when I'm at home.
Yeah.
When I'm home, I still have like, exercise that I get and things that I do, but it's not nearly on the same level as playing a show.
Totally. Yeah. And you don't need that, I mean, really like recovery aspect as much at home as you do on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of stuff do you do like on a regular basis to just help you balance stress levels?
Uh, I'm a pretty low stress person, and I think maybe I just have whatever these things are like kind of built into my regular thing.
Mhm.
Um, First off, I try to like not let things stress me out in the first place. You know, I try to look at things sort of for what they are, even when it's like, just animal chaos. I have to just go, well, okay, well, what's happened here?
Yeah.
What can I do? What can be done? What is out of my control, and I can't do anything about it, and so I just gotta let it go.
Yeah. But I mean that like that's a I mean that is a practice in itself because some people have obviously have trouble realizing that they can't control every aspect of life. So it makes them more tense, but you're already on top of
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I would love it if I could control everything, but then also, then that requires a lot of work from me, and I don't know if I want to expend that energy. I don't want that take that time to just control things. Like, so I enjoy being in the chaos to a degree, like there's things happening, and that's great because, if I were controlling everything at all times, it'd probably be pretty boring, you know?
Right? Yeah. Super
So
what's the word? You can expect everything.
yeah. But I mean, then there are times where, like, you go to your car and you find out the window's smashed open, and it's like, okay, well, that is a pretty stressful situation. Um, for me, it's like, suddenly I have to do a number of tasks, spend money, time, energy just to get back to where I was prior to that.
Mhm.
Um, and it's also, super inconvenient if I'm like on my way somewhere, or, it suddenly just throws a monkey wrench into the day.
Yeah.
But it's the same type of thing where it's like, well, this is the situation I'm dealing with now. I can't go back in time and undo this. It's the cards that I've been dealt. I have to move forward from here.
So you're just good at like reasoning with yourself. It's not like you need to like, do deep breathing or anything. You just are rational in your own head.
Yeah, I mean, I do. There have been situations where I do deep breathing, but usually that's more like a physical pain, coping with physical pain.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes when I like, let's say I'm about to fall asleep or I am asleep and I hear some sort of thing happen with these animals, probably, and I have to jump up immediately and do a thing, clean up something, or who knows what, separate two animals.
Yeah.
And then I'm like trying to, transition immediately back into sleep. I'm like, okay, well, first off, my heart rate is way up from where it was. And so, I'll be like, okay, I get back into bed, put the mask on, and I just like focus on the breathing, really just calm it down. Or it could be like there was one night where I don't remember what the situation was, but somehow I hit my head on the nightstand, on the corner of the nightstand, just like bam, right into my forehead. And it was just not only like jarring, but obviously super painful. So just calm the breathing. Yeah.
So if you hurt yourself, you go into breathing, you're not like, screaming profanities.
Yeah, I mean, it's depending on what it is, maybe the pain level might bring out some F words. Or I don't know, it just depends. Yeah. I mean, I'm not like the type of person who has like who will go on like a rampage of like, for the benefit of others. It's more of like my own expression to myself, like, fuck.
Here's an advert in less than 50 seconds. Are you sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? Do you want to feel better in your mind and body? Then check out the wellness coaching that I offer. It's kind of like therapy. You can share what's on your mind, and then it's all about taking action. You'll learn new tools to help you heal and grow through what's tripping you up. We can focus on anything from physical health to mental health. Schedule a free 15-minute consult over on the website to learn more. And check out our Healthy Touring course. This self-guided online video course is for any level of musician. Whether you tour all the time or only sometimes, you'll learn a ton if your goal is to play better, feel better, and be better. With special appearances by members of Descendants, Teenage Bottle Rocket, The Last Gang, Lawrence Arms, and more. Head over to the website for all the details. Now, back to the interview. Is there anything like healthy that you've added into your life that's improved your creativity?
Let's see, that's a good question. I try to like give myself opportunities to be creative every day.
Okay.
I notice that there are certain times where I feel like let's see, how can I express this? I feel like closer to the creative source. People in the past have described it as like the ether or something, like something where like the creativity just flows directly into you.
Yeah, like you're inspired and like you're in flow, basically.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily believe in that is coming from some sort of external source, but there are times where I feel like I've created a physical state where I can be nothing but extremely creative. And these moments for me are going into or coming out of a nap, taking a hot shower.
Yes. Water. If I'm brushing my teeth or taking a shower is like when I have all these ideas.
And it's, and so I try to not only allow myself to be in that space, but I can also like steer it to a degree. I go like, okay, here I am in this situation. I'm going to focus on a comic that I need to write, or I'm going to work on a song idea, or figure out this lyric that I've been struggling with, or whatever it is, and channel it into that. And sometimes my brain will go, okay, that's cool, man, but we're going to work on this other thing. And yet, I don't have control over it.
Yeah.
But generally it's, if I just sort of open myself up and just like let something come out, then I'll find myself with almost too much information to like to notate. And that's the other thing, is I've created systems for notation of things, whether it's a song idea or whatever it is. It's like I've the notes app in my phone, or leave myself a voice memo, different methods of like writing down different ideas,
Yeah.
so that I have them. And it's in, sometimes it's in my own language for things that's just my own shorthand.
Mhm.
But I think just giving myself those opportunities and recognizing when there's a little spark of something, like a path I could go down, and just allowing myself to go fully down that path.
Yeah. Does exercise ever get you in that kind of headspace?
Sometimes I think, I'm a runner.
Yeah.
So for me, the running is kind of, it's less about the creativity, and it's more about kind of just releasing whatever I've been kind of like holding on to, whether it's maybe some of these like little micro stresses that I've compartmentalized, or maybe it's like a song that I've been mixing and I'm like wound up in it a little bit, and I need to just kind of like let it go and step away from it. Often when I'm working on a song, especially a mix, it's I super obsess about the song, and it bounces around in my head even when I'm not listening to it.
Yeah.
And it helps to, put on some other music, somebody else's music,
Hmm.
and go running, and it just sort of like cleans the slate.
Yeah.
And
You
then,
need the distance from it.
yeah. And then, I take a shower afterwards, and if that's the moment, if, like where something fresh, something brand new, that now, we have a blank canvas, like let something happen.
Yeah. That's awesome. What does mindfulness mean to you?
Mindfulness, that's the state of being mindful. I feel like,
Are
should I grab
you
a dictionary? Like, I
no,
don't know.
I mean, like, are you into it? What's your take on like positive outlook and gratitude and, just kind of like awareness, just that kind of stuff?
I try to be sort of mindful of all things, all times. It's hard, there's only so many things you can think about at one time. And, sometimes I admittedly like lose sight of a specific perspective, whether it be my own perspective that I should be having on something, or being aware of someone else's perspective on a situation that I'm affecting. It's difficult sometimes but I think, like you said, keeping a generally positive attitude, but not a superficially, like acknowledging like, hey, there's a lot of negativity and there's reasons to be negative,
Yep.
and that's fair.
Yep.
But just knowing that like having a negative attitude and being cynical about situations is not going to help any of the situations, and B, help my own ability to, even begin to serve in a situation like that, or be in a state that I want to be in.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
um
because I mean, there's like the whole toxic positivity thing, and it's not like, because I think some people think like, oh, I have to be positive all the time. It's like, no, you need to feel every emotion. There's no negative emotion, but it's like, how long will you let yourself sit and dwell in that, perceived negative emotion? So,
yeah, I've been there.
yeah.
I've definitely been in a place before where I just feel super negative, and it doesn't benefit me in any way. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's like a hole you go down to, down in like a negative spiral, and the only result of it is that now you're down in a thing that you have to then get out of, and that's, you know
Yeah.
Nobody
So
wants to do that.
yeah, I mean, it makes it harder. So if you catch yourself, realizing you might start spiraling, like what helps you like hold on to the walls and pull yourself back up?
First thing is I check my blood sugar level,
Ah,
because for me that historically has been a source of a negative spiral. um I mean, this is probably like 23, 24 years ago that I first really realized, like, man, there are a lot of negative thoughts bouncing around in my head. And even though I'm thinking them and feeling them, I know, like, objectively that they're not true. What's the deal?
yeah,
And
yeah.
then I would realize, oh, you know what? I haven't eaten since this morning or whatever. And so I started being able to associate that with, like, oh, hey, you know what? I need to eat something. And often I will, if I'm in a situation where I'm starting to kind of feel that way or think that way, I immediately just like try to shut it off and just eat something.
Hmm.
um and acknowledge it. Hey, this is probably a blood sugar issue. Stop, eat, then we'll reassess.
Yes. Yeah. That's smart. Yeah, being in tune to your body. Cause I mean, it's true. Like food, sleep, hydration, like if those things get off, like then you get off. And then it's that awareness or mindfulness to realize that that's, it's like an internal thing. Hmm.
Yeah, so it's definitely like try to be aware of what's happening physically and mentally, emotionally, all of that at all times. um it just, yeah, just like, I guess it, constantly checking in with myself, like, hey, how am I feeling? Like right now I could tell you, like right here, got some pain, but that's from 2 nights ago when Boogie, after putting him to sleep in his little cat bed and just hoping that he'll just sleep there all night, you know 20 minutes into me being asleep, he comes bounding up onto the bed past Rocky 2. And I realize, oh, okay, there's a potential for like a cat fight, so I've got to. And also, like, he's still fresh out of surgery, and he can't even, he could fall off the bed easily. Like, he doesn't have the balance totally figured out, so I like immediately grab him and like hold him and try to get into a position where he'll fall asleep, but I'll also be able to fall back to sleep. And by the time I woke up, it was too late. Like, I'd already like kind of kinked it in a weird way, and
Yeah. Animals, man,
yeah.
animals. Is there anything that you know now that you kind of wish that you knew, like your younger self knew when you were younger?
Uh, I wish, yeah, I mean, sort of. I wish that at an earlier age, or an early age, or even at all, I had really locked into like a consistent sleeping schedule.
Mm,
Because I feel like that's the one thing that I still don't really have, that I know would be a huge benefit. And it's just tough because, like, I'm 46 and I've made it my whole life without any sort of consistent sleeping schedule at all. And I've even, like, at times when I was younger, prided myself in the ability to like stay up as late as I need to finish a project.
right.
Um, and so it's like hardwired in there with, and now I'm trying to like counteract that, and it's just so difficult because my brain, I could look at the clock at any time, day or night, and not think like, oh, it's pretty late, I should probably get to sleep. The one thing that does tell me like, oh, it's maybe you should get to sleep is when the sun comes out. I'm like, oh man, I should probably get some
Well,
sleep.
so
Yeah.
I mean, because there's like, some people are more daytime people and some people are more nighttime people. So
I'm
you're
a night person.
probably, yeah, a night person.
100%.
Yeah. But I mean, like, but that's the thing. It's like, it's a smaller percentage of people, but it's legitimate. Like, that's how your body is wired. So it's not like it's wrong. It's just, it's a little
Yeah,
different.
I mean, and society wants to battle against that.
Yep.
Everyone is always like tries to hurl these accusations that I'm not getting enough sleep because I'm staying up late. No, I'm sleeping later. Or that, it's, I don't, or that I'm like lazy because I'm sleeping in, even though I'm like, no, I'm just trying to get the 8 hours that everyone gets.
Shifted as
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
So, I mean, and I have been fortunate enough to have a career where I generally don't have to, I've never had a 9 to 5. So I generally don't have to wake up early for anything or anyone. And so I'm like, well, say what you will, but I'm 46 and I've made this work my whole life. But with that, for me, because it's sort of this, it's like you said, it's a smaller, number of people. There's not these like sort of like societal guidelines of when would be the appropriate bedtime for a night owl. And so, sometimes it's 2 and sometimes it's 7 a.m. And it's because of that, like I said, I've had a really inconsistent like sleep schedule my whole life. And I would love to have just been like, you know what? It's 3. I go to bed at 3 every night and, wake up at 11 and that's it. That's me. That's my deal. And if it was, if that were the case, like that would be great. I feel like my body and my brain would really appreciate that. But, I'm only just learning that really in my 40s.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge thing that I wish that I could have really implemented early. It wouldn't have worked for like high school. Obviously, they make you wake up super early.
Yeah. Consistency with sleep or anything or any habit, it's obviously consistency. Also, you should read if you haven't already, but Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep, is super interesting, and it's like the science of sleep, and like it goes into like, if you're the night person or the, more day person, and it's like, it's awesome. It's a really interesting book.
I'll read that.
Yeah, to help you fall asleep maybe.
Yeah, well, no, my night routine doesn't allow for any reading.
Oh, when do you read, or do you?
That's more of a daytime thing. That's more of just like I'd say like a early afternoon, late morning kind of a thing.
Okay.
There's like a earlier ramp period, a ramp up.
And it's part of that.
Yeah, it's so like let's talk about my morning routine. Let's get that going. It's basically the opposite of the night routine. I go and unbrush my teeth, unfloss, put the dirt on my face. I go and like dirty up the dishes. No, it's so yeah, I wake up and I make coffee. I wash my face, brush my teeth, and then I have a period of sort of like ramping up mentally. And I like to do during that time, I like to do like crosswords or I play Words with Friends with a couple friends, and so do those things and I just try to like mentally ramp myself up, respond to emails, things that are generally not creative, because at that point in time I don't have any creativity in my brain. It's just like nothing. There's nothing there. This is, I think, like one of the reasons why I've throughout my life end up sort of pushing my sleep time later is in order to sort of like allow myself to be creative in the wee hours. Because usually it's like, evening time, suddenly I'm starting to feel really creative.
Yeah.
And it's just really impossible for me to get to that space earlier. Like even now, like I don't like if we had done this podcast later, I'd be funnier. It's just that's just the truth. Like this time of day is like kind of that weird, I don't know, in between where I'm not asleep, I'm not ramping up, but I'm not quite to that special place yet. So
interesting. Well, do you have a quote that you like a lot by chance? I had put that in the email if you saw it.
Yeah, so I saw that and like, man, I don't even know any quotes. Like started thinking about quotes, like
or song lyrics.
Like a lyric, like yeah, there's plenty of lyrics I like, and there's probably quotes that I like too. I couldn't think of anything.
What time were you looking at the email, Hunter?
I looked at it both in the night and in the day, and like I don't know, quotes. Like I started thinking about quotes like that I know of, and like no, I mean I like these, but they're not. I wouldn't identify that as like my quote, And then I started I actually honestly, like earlier today, I started like trying to make up a quote. Like, like there are blah blah blahs and blah blah blahs and I don't know.
Did you end up making up a quote even if it sucked? Did you come up with anything?
No, because it's the daytime, so I'm not quite there. I'm not quite to that creative place yet. No, and like there are I probably have some quotes in my phone, in my notes, like saved, whether they're like quotes from, philosophers or great thinkers or musicians or like my girlfriend when she's like half asleep saying something weird or or just an idea that I had that I came up with that is just probably dumb,
Yeah.
intentionally dumb.
Uh-huh.
But I don't, none of them that I feel like I can just
Rattle off.
so but yeah, I don't know. That was the one I was like, oh man, she wants a quote.
So we can
A
pass.
lyric.
We
I mean,
can
we could
pass
do a
on.
lyric.
Yeah. What do you like?
I
First
don't
thing
know.
that comes to your head, even if you don't like it, what came to your head first or second?
Yeah, see, this is you're coming to me at 3 o'clock in the afternoon with an idea for something. You're just, no, I got nothing.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I could just like pull up a song randomly and just sit and be like, yep, it was this song, but no.
Nah,
I
that's
mean,
not
to be
genuine.
honest, like I have so I've spent the last like week and a half, 2 weeks mixing songs for my dad.
Oh.
So my dad, who is 80, or he would say, I'm fucking 80. My dad, who's 80, has been a lifelong musician, singer, and keyboard player and saxophonist. And he's, been recording songs his whole life. And for the past, I guess it's probably been almost 20 years, maybe, since he has actually released something. He's just been compiling songs. And every time I visit him, I'm like, encourage him, like, hey, let's get these songs. Like, what do you need? Like, and he kind of like works on a song and gets it going and then sort of puts it somewhere and then works on something new. And so I'm like, well, what is it? What that you're working on is inspiring you right now? What does that need to, to be, pulled across the finish line? And a lot of it's just mixing. He is also limited by some of the instruments and tech that he's using is pretty dated.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured out a way for him to send me like raw tracks of things that he's recorded, and then I just pop them into Pro Tools and mix them. And some of them require me like redoing things.
Yeah.
But it's been fun. It's been really cool to sort of see some of the newer songs he's been working on and try to find a general mixing template that sort of fits the style that he's doing now, that sort of serves how he wants to sound and what instruments he's using.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these songs are just bouncing around in my head right now. There's like 2 or 3 that, even last night I was working on till pretty late. And it's interesting because I know his lyric style is not, he really doesn't, it's not like purely autobiographical. He's not sitting down there trying to really like express himself. I remember when I was probably 18 or 19, sitting in the room with him, and we were both working on lyrics individually.
Uh-huh.
And his style was like, I'm going to write down a bunch of like words and phrases that sound cool. They have like a cool, like when you say them, when you sing them, they have a cool sound to them, or it's an interesting, turn of phrase, whatever it is. He's writing these things down and sort of throwing ideas at me. And I'm sitting there like as a young punk, like trying to write like the most meaningful, like lyrics about social change. And he threw a concept at me. He's like, robot rodeo. He's like, that sounds like a good robot rodeo. It's a good sound. I'm like, that's a bad lyric, Dad. Like, that doesn't mean anything. You just made that up. He's like, you can have that one for free. I'm like, it's
You're like,
fine.
can I
I'm like,
still burn it?
yeah. And so, it took me years to come around to a place where I'm like, that's his approach is wonderful. Like a lot of his songs that he sends to me, some of them are like, he's sending me a version where it's where the vocal track is just kind of like a mumble track, which I've done, many, many times now over the years. And then he'll take the mumble track and listen to it. I mean, these are words that sounds that came out spontaneously and are meant to sound like words, but aren't words necessarily. Sometimes they are. Sometimes there's a word here or there, but sometimes it's like a non-word, a word that almost would have been a word if you had ended it a different way. But, anyway, he'll take this track and listen to it and try to like figure out what is this singer saying, and transcribe it and put it into real words. That sounds kind of like this, and so something and then he'll go back and sing those words to it. And sometimes there'll be a little more of a kernel of an idea prior to that. There'll be a hook that is actual lyric that probably came to him spontaneously, or maybe it was just an idea that he thought of that he had before he sat down at the piano, or whatever it is. But by the time the song is done, it has actual lyrics that the listener goes like, oh yeah, that means this and this, and I can relate to this and that, even though that's not necessarily what he was trying to do with it. But the funny thing that I've noticed now that he's been sort of hitting me with song after song after song, and I have a whole body of lyrics, some of which I almost in real time watched him turn from mumble lyrics into real lyrics. So I got to hear both sides. What I have now is sort of enough information that's, like I said, it's not on a lyric by lyric level. It's not autobiographical. He's not writing this thing about himself or trying to express a specific idea that he's been thinking about necessarily. But if you look at all the lyrics across all the songs, it's very autobiographical. There are things that only he in his after his 80 years of life, in his situation, being married to my mom for 53 years, his life experience can only lead him to write certain types of phrases, certain things. There's a sort of a filter that only he will, only certain things that can come from him and be there. And so you get a better picture of it when you see all the lyrics. They're like, oh yeah, that's totally my dad. It's not just random. It's far from it. It's 100% only something that could come from him. So that's what's popping around in my head right now. And so it's not like a specific quote or something, but a lot of the things that I've noticed about his perspective that he's put into these songs is that a lot of it comes from you see it being voiced by a person who has seen 80 years of life and who has been able to enjoy, being married to my mom for 53 years and spent, longer than that with her. And they've lived in the same house for, I guess, 34 years. No, 44 years. Wait, yes, 44 years.
Okay.
Or almost 44 years. But all these life experiences you see in those lyrics, and it's just it's really fascinating, because it's like he's not the type of person where you could get him to like sit down and write a an essay on life experiences, and here's some advice, or here's my perspective on things. That's not his thing. But you get sort of a version of that in these songs, even though he, like I said, he's not writing any of them to necessarily be like, hey, this is my story about me doing this. It's not that specific, but it's all there if you can interpret it.
Yeah. Dude, that's super cool. That's awesome that your dad does that and that you help with it. And that's super neat.
Sorry if that's kind of off track here, but
Hey, you know what? They're conversations. There's no right or wrong, and that's interesting. So thanks for sharing it.
yeah.
I guess my final question for the hour
Okay.
is, so the tagline for my business is delay dying, because I do these interviews for the podcast, but then I also sell supplements, I do wellness coaching, I do other stuff. So the tagline's delay dying. So I like to ask, if you had to give someone tips or advice on how to delay dying, or in other words, just live a happier, healthier life, what would you say?
Okay. Let's see. First, I would say, I mean, I don't know, because I mean, I made it this far, but I don't know, I don't know what happens after this necessarily. But I've made it this far, and I think things that I hope will sort of help me in terms of longevity. One being that I am vegan, and I've been vegan for 23, almost 23 years.
Okay.
And I mean, even vegetarian for another 8 years on top of that. And also, have been drug and alcohol free for I guess more than my adult life. So those things are huge. And I feel like that's, from everything that I've heard, those should help someone delay dying. I think in high school, I was kind of like, it was like freshman year, I guess. I was kind of like on the, in a sort of transition between like the 8th grade to freshman, like junior high to high school kind of thing, where you're sort of figuring out who you are and who your friend group is, and things are changing. And a lot of my friends were getting into drinking and drugs. And I was, feeling like that's not for me, but why? Why is that something that I'm not like interested in? And I think I really sort of like boiled it down. I wrote a paper in, my English class or whatever, that was about drugs and their effects on musicians. And I think it just maybe the things that I had read or had heard about up to that point about famous musicians throughout the history of popular music just succumbing to the effects of drugs and alcohol. And it made me really sad to think that like a lot of these people whose art we really appreciate, had their lives cut short or their creativity cut short because of something to me that seemed like such a simple choice that one could make. And I know it's not that simple, and I know that addiction is a really difficult thing. But for me in that moment, I realized like I feel like I can make this choice, and I don't know that I'll always feel the way that I feel about it, but for now, this is how I feel, and I want to try to like do my best to delay dying, and I haven't looked back. And so, yeah, I guess that would be.
Yeah, that's good. And like, cause like, I don't drink or, do drugs, smoke, nothing like that. And I'm always curious, like for other people, so it's interesting, like how that, the essay and what you were kind of immersed in, like how that was your turning point. I'm always interested in what makes other people choose, like a sober path.
Yeah, I mean, there were other contributing factors. I think like watching some of my friends and people in the greater circle of friends, like really even as like teenagers and preteens, even like running into trouble or problems related to probably mostly alcohol at the time.
Yeah.
But it's just like it seemed like too dangerous and messy a path to like even want to like go down. And has proven to be that, for many people. I also think about, here's something that I think about actually like every day or a lot of times, is there all the things that you do on like a daily basis that seem really small, whether it's like something that you're eating or drinking or an activity you're doing or a way that you're thinking or just anything that in the moment seems really small, but you're doing it every single day over a long period of time. That's going to have this cumulative effect that could be really hard to reverse, or to steer back towards what you're trying to do. Whether it's just like me last year thinking like, you know what, maybe I'll have a second ice cream today, and then the next day and the next day, and finding myself a couple months later be like, you know what, I definitely have put on some, I don't want to say weight because I'm not weighing myself, I have no idea, but I definitely feel like bigger than I was before, and I don't want to feel this way, or just kind of generally like not in as healthy a place. And realizing like, well, I mean, I know that this is from these like smaller decisions that I was making on a daily basis, and I know that it's going to be a lot harder for me to sort of steer myself back to where I want to be. Which then I like, well, okay, I got to do that, and it, which is good because then that also helped me like really kind of push my own like fitness goals and sort of like push myself into more physical activity.
That's good.
And that's great because that's a success story or whatever. But sometimes it's like little things that I think about, like, I don't know, like I was saying, like just a negative way of thinking or something, or dwelling on some negative thought that maybe it only takes up a certain amount of your time each day. But if you're thinking about it every day across weeks and months and years, that turns into hours and hours that you've been dwelling on something negative, and that has an effect on you.
And it is etching like a major like pattern, neural pathway in your brain that it's just stuck on that. And so the flip side would be like brainwash yourself and dwell on something, the opposite, a positive thing, ideally.
Yeah. So
interesting. And the other thing I want to mention about like the sugar, for example, like the ice cream, because when I was like in my 20s, well, I mean, like up until, I don't know, late 20s or something, I would eat like half a loaf of bread a day and like a small cake from Whole Foods because I worked at Whole Foods. I'm like, I don't get fat. It doesn't matter. But we must remember that sugar is still completely screwing up like your organs and your body inside. So you might not be getting fat, but like, you're going to become fucking diabetic, and like, it's going to mess up your gut, which messes up your brain and your mood and like depression and all kinds of stuff, your adrenals, energy. So just as a little reminder there for people.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, yeah, exactly. It's for me, especially because, like I said, I've had issues in the past where my blood sugar levels will dip, and it's super easy, especially like in my 20s, I'll be like, oh, my blood sugar levels are down, I'll eat a bunch of cookies and I'll be good. And it's like all you're doing is like digging yourself a bigger pitfall to fall into later down the line, whether it's an hour later or just generally, because like you said, you're giving your brain that easy like chemical blast. And that's going to be far harder to keep up in a healthy way, or deprogram yourself later, as they say. That's a technical term for that, probably.
Oh, it is. Deprogramming is incredibly technical. So, I mean, yeah, man, we covered a lot, from cats to blood sugar to your sleep routine and waking up in the morning and, unbrushing your teeth and unflossing. I love it. Thank you for everything that you shared. This has been a fun conversation, and all the stuff about your dad and his music. So cool. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Such a good thing.